Hi everyone, welcome to another sketch talk. These, as you know, are little accompanying videos where I talk about one of the sketches that I make for my well, not make for my patrons, but I make available for my patrons. As most of you know, I have a Patreon channel, and every month, depending on the tier that you have, you get either four high resolution scans of the color, four high resolution scans of color and line, or either you get 8 color and 8 line sketches. This is, I pick one of the sketches that I've made during that period, and I explain a little about the background of how that image came to be, or how I went about and made some preparations before I started to sketch. So here's the July version of this. And it was for the sketches that I made in June. I always run a month behind because I still need to make all the sketches from July. We're half of the month, so that will be in the next edition of this sketch talk. You might hear some little background noise, and unfortunately I can't help that, but I live very close to a small festival area and they have a festival out here. I hope it starts. I shut everything, shut every window, so hopefully it is contained more outside. Let's go. Okay. I have posted these next to each other. That's something that people suggested to me would be a good idea, and actually it really is, because here you can already see on the left you see the sketch that I made, and on the right is actually the starting picture. It's even larger than this one. If I try and see if I can get that done, let me make a small extra edition, and you can see that if I take this image, it's I already cropped it a little. This is the full image from Moleskine. You see that it was a corner building in a street. I loved it. I really loved it. And it's an elongated series of buildings actually, and I was really interested in that front building, so I took that one. So I wanted to isolate this building, maybe even add some of that, but more or less contain my sketch to this building. And since you see this is not fully in the photograph, it's not there, I can draw, so I figured I extended it a little myself. So let me get rid of this one. So you see that I took just a small part of this photograph, I cropped out the rest, and then that's what you see here. And then I start to work on the basic preparation to prepare my photograph to start sketching it. And here you see one of the, it's generally the first step I do is I crop it to the format of my sketch paper. And afterwards, that you can see, you see that in the sketch on the left, I crop it so that this is mainly for Instagram, because if I would take the format on the right and would put that on Instagram, it clips off a large chunk of the sketch. So that's something that, it's a limitation of Instagram. Back to the preparation photo, I crop it to the format of my paper, to the ratio of my paper, which is 21 high by 13 wide. and I fill everything that I don't really need or that I'm not really interested in. I fill it with a white, yeah, color, just to block out everything that's not of interest to me for making this sketch. You see that I add or keep some of that stuff around. I don't necessarily copy that every time, or don't necessarily draw that, but I like to keep that around in case that I want to do something with it. I like these visually interesting pieces, so I keep them around. And I love aircos. You have seen that in many of my sketches, and that's basically also something that I really love about these Japanese architecture, these stores, these houses. We're going to need a lot of aircos. Even in the Netherlands, I start seeing them pop up everywhere. I don't have one, and for the moment I don't want one, even if it gets really hot here. It's just a couple of days, but I can imagine in these places they really need them, and I love to see them. I love these little units. So I made the background, eliminated all the distracting detail, and then the next stage is, you see that in difference, I start adding stuff that I would like to have in my sketch. And one of the things that you see here is I add like an antenna. I add something like a blue sunscreen. I add some extra. Why settle for just one or two aircos if you can have many? And I thought it would be really nice here on this blank wall to have something extra. As you can see here, I see this dried up stuff which was overlaid, or probably that has grown because here probably there was like something that kept out the rain, which has since long gone and deteriorated. But I also see something like these bushes here, and I thought, okay, that's really a nice extra thing. So that's why I added a really symbolical, you see that, because again, I'm not really interested in making this photograph or this Photoshop file. I work in Photoshop. I'm not really interested in making that really something very interesting or very beautiful. This is just a starter for me, a prep file. And that doesn't need to be nice, it doesn't need to be neat, it just needs to be clear enough for me so that I know what I want to do in the sketch. So also one of the favorite things, an antenna, a satellite dish. You see that I add that here as well, and that is more or less how all the elements that I wanted in my sketch, how I put them into the photo, and some of that stuff is photographic. Here in this case, this is a photographic antenna, and this is just painted in. Because yeah, that's I just need an indication of something. And these aircos, I took them from another sketch, just put them in there. They don't need, I just need to see something there. You see that I also deviated from, I made one more or less in a landscape way and one in a chopped off portrait way. This just needs to tell me, okay, put some aircos there, and also like put some plants and flowers here that have grown over this frame structure, and I only need to know that that's something that I want to be aware of when I start making this sketch. So then I thought another thing is that what I liked here, but I wanted to really punch in a little bit more, is I loved these subtle color shifts here, and I wanted to push that yeah, even more. So I went ahead and gave this really exaggerated, saturated look and light and dark look, which also helps making the light and the dark side a little bit more readable. And again, I don't really have to slavishly follow this, but it helps me in my idea while sketching it. So that is basically my starting point. This one here is the starting point for my sketch. And this is the sketch as it finally turned out. And as you can see here, there's lots and lots and lots of colors. So this is not really like something that I did with like 5 colors or so. But you see a couple of main colors here shining through. I start out with the lightest colors. And the lightest colors in this case are from Copic. And that's, for instance, in this area and in this area, that is done on the whole, on this whole side. I apply that color, and that's more or less certain. It's an E40. I use a lot of the Copic E series, the Earth color series. That's a very nice series, and I use the less saturated colors, or the less saturated, less saturated colors, because they don't look like extremely bright, and that's something that I like. And usually you wouldn't see these really bright colors, only in case of like if there's a really bright light, that will be a very high saturated color. So this is an E40 and E41, and I slowly build that up to like an E42 in this area. And from there, I start layering colors on top of that. Since alcohol markers are transparent, I also really love to make use of that transparency effect, of that transparent character of the markers. This color is also from Copic E series, and that's an E70 and an E71. The lighter of the two is the E70, and a little bit darker is the E71. It's more or less like a purplish brown, very unsaturated color, and that's also has turned out to be, or has become, one of my favorite colors to use. Here, since I wanted to suggest that the sun is really shining through this sunroof, I took a very light, more or less light, but very saturated blue. That's a Copic B02 combined with a Copic B05. The 0 in the numbering stands for the first 0. Actually, it's the first digit. You have 2 digits in the Copic series. You have a letter or a double letter. In this case, for the B04, for instance, the B stands for blue. That's obvious. The 0 stands for very saturated. If you have a 9, in that case, it's a very unsaturated color. And the second digit, so in this case B04, that's the 4, stands for the value. So if you would have a B00, you have a saturated but very, very light blue. If you have a B99, for instance, you have a very dark and very unsaturated blue. that's how you can see already, can see on the numbers what you can expect. But what I also always try to tell people is make a color reference sheet, and I'll see if that sticks in camera. I want to show it on this video, but I probably will also make this available as a download. Here, let's hope the reflection doesn't play too much part. Here you can see all the colors that I had my local store make this for me. These are all the colors in the Copic series, and this sheet I printed out like the reference squares, and I asked them if they would be willing to create a color sample in every one of these with the numbers and everything that's already there. It's pre-printed. So what I printed it on my paper, which is look, I work a lot with a Moleskine. I just forgot the name there for a minute. I had printed this on an A4 size Moleskine sketchbook page. I tore it out, put it in my laser printer, and I had them make the color samples on top of that. And that is a page that is gold for me. It took some money for me because nobody wanted to do it for free. It took some money, but it's indispensable for me. If I have like something that I see and I see, oh, I would like to have that kind of color, I can look at my reference sheet and see which one comes closer to it. And I have actually 2 of these reference sheets. Let me take the other one, which looks a little less filled, and these are the colors that I actually have. I hope this stays visible in camera. I cannot check that right now, so otherwise you will just see a small section of my face. I will make these as downloadable scans. I will put them in the links in the video. But these 2 reference sheets, the one with all the colors and the one that shows all the colors that I have, are indispensable, because then I can quickly see, okay, this comes closest to the color that I want to use, and I can just pick it. I can see the number and I can just pick the color and start working with that. So that's a really big help. You see here basically also that I made the down part a little warmer. The left part of this image is what I would call the main shadow area. So this side is a little darker than in general than the right side, and that's on purpose, of course, because that's how you can quickly create depth in a very simple form. So if I would make a very symbolic house here, and I would quickly, I'll just pick a color here. And I'll just pick 2 values basically. So for instance, this value, and I go a little bit darker on this side. Even this is already showing you, apart from the red lines of course, but this is already showing you that you have a light side. Pick my red again. My light side and my shadow side. And you can quickly get a volume by just keeping in mind things on this side are light and catch most of the light, and things on this side would be darker. So you would have darker values in your colors, and they usually also can get cooler than the stuff that's in light, because if it's lit by sunlight, these colors would be warmer. On top here you see that it shine through that blue sunscreen, so that will take a little from the blue. But basically, yeah, that's how simple it can be. And if you go a little, like, if I would make this this section here, let's take the red for that, which is basically this subdivision of the building in a first and a second floor. You could quickly paint that in, and you could quickly add some light catching stuff up here, and you see how fast you can start to get depth in a sketch by just adding tiny little things and keeping in mind this light and dark ratio. So let me hide that and get back to this sketch. So here, earth colors a lot, and here I used a lot of warm colors. Again, here, this is probably an E11 and an E13, which are also these reddish kind of browns, these ones. And here I go even darker than that, and that's, you see that this is a very saturated, it's a detail, so these are not the colors that are most important to the sketch. They add these little little icings on the cake, these small dots of color, just like here. Some very, saturated, but still a mid value, saturated colors that add life in this dark section. And you see that after just like what I did here, where I painted with light over dark, if I want to take that just to show, if I want to do this with markers, that's not possible, because the markers are transparent, and you cannot have something like transparent white. People that use watercolor know this. You cannot have like paint white over dark, because you go from light to dark in transparent media, and not from dark to light, because you can never get over that. You can never get over dark and get light again. The only thing to do that is with opaque media, and you can see that here. This covers everything underneath, and that's my Posca white acrylic markers. I have a couple of them. I have this pinkish one, I have this pale yellow one, and I have a white one, the white highlighter. You can see that a lot. Over dark, this works really fantastic. I'll just do a little Photoshop approach of this. You see that it really, over dark, this works miracles. That really works. That doesn't work over light areas or lighter areas. It just cannot, you cannot go wider than white. So this effect of like light over dark is also only active or visible or practical on darker areas. But if I would paint, I will make an exaggerated one. If I would paint like this cable going down, this can look really way too bright if it would be everywhere. So what I do there is, when I have finished adding all the white lines, I go over it again and take a darker, usually like a 50 or a 60% transparent marker, like a cool gray 50 or a cool gray 60, and I paint over areas to push them back more into the shaded areas. You can still see them. I mean, you can still see all these white lines, but they're not that harsh white anymore. They start to blend in more with the rest of the sketch, and that is something that's really very important. I think that's it for this little sketch talk. Hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know how to improve things, or please let me know if you have any ideas on what you would like to see that I miss, or that I skipped, or that I went over too fast. I would love to make these as educational as possible for you. So happy to see you in the next one. Bye bye.